$2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers' best bet or daily package for only $2.
Excuse me. Happy Tuesday, guys. Welcome to WagerTalk TV. I'm Carmine Bianco, and I'm coughing just to start off the new year. The same way I ended the year, a little under the weather, is the same way I start the new year. But I'm looking forward to it. A new season, 2023. We're into almost the second half of the season. We still got a long way to go as far as the domestic leagues in Europe. MLS is right around the corner. Champions League, the knockout stages, Europa League, the knockout stages, all kick off next month. There is a ton of soccer. On today's show, we're going to do some EPL. We're going to do Arsenal, Newcastle, which goes today, Aston Villa, and Wolverhampton. We're going to do Tottenham, Crystal Palace, and then finish it off with a big fixture and the biggest one of the midweek, Chelsea hosting Man City. With me, let's bring in the regulars from last season, Pavlos Lagaretos of Sports Memo, Nick Borman, and Kevin Dolan of Wager Talk. Guys, 2023, I hope you guys enjoyed the festivities and didn't drink too much on New Year's Eve. Kev, you obviously celebrated, you and Pavlos, because you're in Europe, celebrated Europe and Asia, celebrated a lot earlier than Nick and I did.
Yeah, for sure. We had a good New Year's over here. And look, everything's good. 2023. We crushed the weekend overall. In NFL, we had a 3-0 sweep in NFL on Sunday. We were the top profit leader for week 17. And looking good, obviously, on Monday Night Football. We had the Cincinnati side of the play before, that really tough end of the game. Prayers go out to Hamlin and the Bills, obviously. But it took the first few games in the EPL late after the international break. Just not quite sure how to step in there. But, we're starting to step it up now heading into this week as the teams get more settled. And we already got 2 players loaded up in the EPL for both tonight and tomorrow. So, obviously, looking forward to them and hopefully a big 2023 ahead.
And I hope you guys have a big 2023. Again, we got like 5 months of the domestic league season in Europe left. And then the finals in June of Europa League, obviously Champions League. MLS will be in the midst of their season. And then we have a new tournament this summer, which takes place with a lot of the League MX teams from Mexico and the MLS teams. Almost, I think it's a World Cup type format, right, Nick?
Yeah, the Leagues Cup, they're calling it, is going to be a month-long break in the MLS season for MLS versus Liga MX. It'll be good. I mean, the MLS they're certainly gotten to the point where they're competitive with Liga MX. It used to be Liga MX dominated when you got into the Champions League, but now MLS is finally pushing back. So it should be an interesting tournament this summer, and I'm just glad club soccer is back. I had a rougher ending to the World Cup than I was hoping for. All my group futures were good, but my tournament futures didn't work out so well. But up 52% in the 2 weeks since club football has come back, so it's been a great start. Hopefully we can continue that. And I know this is a soccer show, but Kevin's favorite sport returns this week. Golf is back. I got a great promo for the rest of the year, which goes basically through August before the start of next NFL season. So 8 months, $199 for golf over on my page at WagerTalk.
Yeah, Nick, you do extremely well with those future bets and those plays, those matchups in golf. So I'm looking forward to hitting some winners with you. I keep putting my name on that lottery list to get Masters tickets, and I keep not ever winning the Masters lottery tickets. One of these days, I will. I did get Masters tickets. This goes back about almost 15 years ago or so, that I did get the tickets, and I ended up selling them for quite the profit. But this is one tournament I really would love to go watch. But again, this is a soccer show. Pavlos, how did you celebrate the new year, my friend? Let's make some money indeed. And I'll have a bit of a promo for you guys after the first couple games. But what we're going to do is we're going to change up the format a little bit. We're going to cover 4 games instead of 3, and instead of all 4 panelists having an opinion on each game, because of time constraints, 2 guys will look at each game that we're featuring. And so we're going to kick it right off with Arsenal and Newcastle. This one goes today. Having a look at the odds on this one, Arsenal minus 124. The draw is plus 282. Newcastle plus 333. 2 teams that at the beginning of the year, if I said to you they would be sitting in the top 3 with Arsenal leading the Premier League, you would have probably had me institutionalized. But Kev, here we are. The Gunners, the Jenga, as we call them, the team from North London. And when they looked at the start of the season, if we thought a team from North London would be at the top of the standing, we might have thought it was Antonio Conte's Tottenham Spurs, but it is Arsenal. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Well, you said at the top of the show, Carmine, that the big game of the week is obviously City-Chelsea, but you could argue this is actually the big game of the week, first versus third. As you said, no one would have pictured that scenario at the start of the season, but we've talked about it, ad nauseum at this stage, at least I have, of how we could potentially see some type of Arsenal drop-off in the near future. Maybe it comes after the international break, maybe it comes in the new year, injuries, whatever. The books are still in agreement with that as well, even with a 7-point cushion at the top of the table for the Gunners. The bookies still have Arsenal listed at plus money right now behind City. But you still have a fairly sizable gap as well to win the title this year. But, the fact is, for me at least, the more I watch this Arsenal team, the more I don't think this drop's coming. They're actually, I can't believe I'm saying this again, they're making me a believer in this team. I heard a lot of pundits come out at halftime against West Ham last week when, Arsenal were trailing at the break, through that penalty. They had just 1 shot and goal in the first half. Didn't look particularly great, Then there was like, oh no, Jesus is out. This team's starting to struggle. But, the words were hardly, I think it was Gary Neville. I think the words were hardly out of his mouth before Arsenal absolutely came out, dominated, ran roughshod over the Hammers over those final 45 minutes. 3 goals, 10 goal attempts. And, the fact is no team seems capable of containing the likes of Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard right now. They're just running over teams. And the turnaround did the exact same thing against a good Brighton side as well just a couple of days later. So, this will be a fascinating game to watch. Newcastle are a team I've had a lot more faith in this season than I have with Arsenal. I've said in the show before, I've backed Newcastle a number of occasions already this year. Mostly the profitable effect as well. But, in this one in London, I know this is being billed in some media sources as kind of potential title game. But to me, obviously, look, if a title presents itself, Newcastle are going to take it, obviously. But Newcastle are still a team, look, to be building for the future. This team will be an absolute juggernaut in a couple of seasons, but that time's not right now. And I just feel that while both teams are similarly matched here, Arsenal only marginally stronger than the Magpies in a couple of key areas. Both teams rank 3rd and 4th respectively in offensive XG. Both teams rank 2nd and 3rd in defensive XG as well. So there's really not a whole pile separating them in terms of stats this season. But saying that, it's been a perfect 7 wins from 7 games now at home for the Gunners this season. They know Manchester City will be breathing down their necks should they slip up on this game. And City then go on to win against now the search Chelsea side on Thursday. So this game is absolutely massive for Arsenal at home here on Tuesday. And while Newcastle would obviously like a win in this one as well, it just doesn't carry the same type of importance to them as it does for Arsenal here. So, while stats-wise, I'd usually go with the away side in this one, catching a good head start, I just believe the situation favours Arsenal more here. This is a statement game for them at home against the top 3 side to effectively, put a stamp on these title credentials for them. So, Arsenal for me in this one against Newcastle later today.
Love it, Kev. That's Kevin Dolan of WagerTalk.com. And like he said, he's got some plays up for the EPL. Nick, I'm going to go to you next. And maybe Kev is right. Maybe this is the match of the midweek. Two of the best defensive sides, obviously, Newcastle allowing only 11 goals, Arsenal allowing only 14, and a 7-point lead on Man City as we turn into the new year. We're only 16 games in, but the longer and the bigger this spread gets, maybe Arsenal are true title contenders. It's so tough for me to give them. Every year I'm an Arsenal fan, and this year I tried to play against them against against Brighton. It didn't go well for them. Saka put that one away pretty much early, and it was done. Give me your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin had a lot of good points and took a lot of the statistics that I want to talk about. So I won't repeat a lot of that. One thing I will say is I did look at the futures market before this past weekend's game. So Arsenal beating Brighton and City, of course, being held to a draw against Everton. Arsenal was plus 250 before this weekend. So one result later, now they're at about plus 130 for the future. So you can see how quickly these numbers will change based on results. So if you're looking to get Arsenal on the season line, I think you've lost too much value at this point at plus 130. Maybe wait for this weekend. Maybe they slip up here, or maybe wait for that one time where they do slip up and all of a sudden City closes the gap to 4 or 5 points. Then you might be able to get a decent number back on Arsenal. So that's my futures suggestion for you if you're looking to take the Gunners any more the rest of the season. But Kevin talked all about the good stuff for Arsenal, and I can't argue it. I mean, I can't argue his decision to go with Arsenal. If he would have made a case for Newcastle, I couldn't argue that either. This is a very tough game to pick a side. I mean, these teams are very good and very much deserving of their position in the table. The one thing I'll say about the Gunners this year, Kevin mentioned the 7-0 record at home, 22-8 goal differential. The outlier, I guess you could call it, is that they have conceded at least one goal in all but one match. So 6 of their 7 matches they have conceded there. So they're blowing teams away by scoring 3 or 4 goals. It's not their defense that has necessarily kept the teams at bay, at least at home. On the road, they seem to be doing much better defensively. The only team they did keep a clean sheet against was Nottingham Forest, which is, not a tough thing to do. Newcastle, it's got to be the biggest surprise. Maybe not a surprise, but the biggest feel-good story of the year in the EPL and where they sit and how good they looked. I mean, they have a 1 loss, right? 9 wins, 7 draws, 1 loss, 32-11 goal differential. Like I said, well-deserving of their position. Every statistic is in the top 4 or top 5. On the road, they've been excellent. They've just 1 loss, which was heartbreaking fashion against Liverpool. Otherwise, 4 wins and 3 draws, including Tottenham, who seem to be fading right now. And then United, who on the flip side are certainly surging. At home, they drew versus City and Chelsea, more proof they can hang with the big boys. It's also worth noting that Newcastle have been held scoreless just 4 times this year. Ironically, all 4 of those matches ended in 0-0 draws, so strange little stat there. But if you can't guess where I'm going here, I think it's going to be tough to pick a side. I don't have any problem with Kevin suggesting Arsenal, but I'm struggling with it. So I'm going on the fact that I think both teams. There's a lot of trends pointing at both these teams getting on the scoreboard. Another stat that just throws me off of the side is how good both teams have been against the spread. Arsenal, obviously, as the season have gone on, have gotten tougher and tougher lines, bigger lines rather, and they're becoming more and more of a favorite every week they play. They're still 11-4-1 against the spread this year, 6-1 to the over at home. Newcastle are even better, 13-3 against the spread. So obviously one of those trends is going to break this week. So I'm going to go with both teams to score. I think Arsenal will certainly get a couple in this match, and I would be surprised if Newcastle hang right there with them and definitely get at least 1 on there. So minus 130. Pretty cheap price, I think, in my mind to get that. And as long as we get a 1-1 or anything above that, obviously we're going to hit this. So I like both teams to score, Arsenal, Newcastle.
All right, Nick Borman at Wager Talk. And guys, we will do a recap at the end of the show with each capper's leans on the 2 games that they covered. So you'll get that at the end of the show. We're going to look at the next game on tap here is Aston Villa and Wolverhampton. Let's have a look at the numbers on this one. Aston Villa minus 105 at home. The draw is plus 262. Wolverhampton 286. I'll look at this first, and then I'll send it over to my friend Pavlos. You look at this, and these are two teams. They're in the bottom half. They're in the bottom half of the Premier League this season, albeit Aston Villa in a much better spot, almost mid-table at 11th or 12th, and they're coming off a good win against Tottenham, but it was a flat Tottenham team, and I'm just not sold as of yet on this Aston Villa side. But what I am sold on is we see each and every year when there is a managerial change, and it's normally a team that's at the bottom of the standings, and it's a surprise that Wolverhampton currently sits second from the bottom, but they are showing some signs of life. Picked up a win at Everton. I think everyone beats up on Everton. Kev's favorite manager there, and but that loss to Man United, that 1-0 loss with Rashford goal coming on and scoring in the 76th minute. They played a very good game against United. Probably should have got something out of that. They've turned the corner. I cannot pronounce the manager's name, obviously coming from Spain, but him and Unai Emery are very familiar with themselves. Julian Lopetegui, Pavlos will know how to pronounce it, but these are guys who are familiar with themselves. Wolverhampton are playing a much better style now, at least in their last couple of games. I think they've turned the corner. There's a couple of ways of looking at this game. You can take Wolverhampton on the double chance win-draw at minus 125, and you get there with a Wolverhampton win or draw. But I'm going full game here. I'm taking Wolverhampton to pull off a bit of a surprise here at plus 286 in a letdown spot for a Villa team coming off a win, a big win in Tottenham. And I'm all about finding a team that it looks like they're going to bounce off a big win, and conversely, finding a team coming off a loss that is going to play much better the next time out. So it's Wolverhampton for me, plus 286. Pavlos, give me your thoughts on this game.
Well, to be honest, I was impressed by Aston Villa's win over Tottenham. They played really well. They exposed Tottenham's defensive weaknesses. Keep in mind that all three of Tottenham's centre backs were carded in that first half. That goes to show how much this Aston Villa really pressured them, and they got a 2-0 win. And actually, in the previous match where they lost 3-1 to Liverpool, they were actually pretty solid in that match as well. So if they show the same spirit, I think they can beat the Wolves. However, the Wolves, as you said, Carmine, teams, they tend to perform much, much better after a managerial change. And he's not a random, he's not a random coach. This Julien Lopetegui, he's a mastermind. He didn't really do a good job in Sevilla. That's why they sacked him. But I think he's going to do a good job in Wolves, but he needs some time. And the Wolves, they've had a really, really bad season so far. Not because of their defense, but mostly because of their offense. This was a team that used to have Adama Traore and Raul Jimenez, 3-4 seasons ago. They were really one of the really most exciting teams to watch. But now they still have those players on the roster. They bought a couple of more players. They have Diego Costa now. They brought Mateus Cunha to save to right the ship. But there is a clear goal-scoring problem in this Wolves side. They tried to change this with the signing of Kalajic from the Bundesliga, who was a really, really excellent addition. But he was so unlucky. He was injured, I think, in his first match ever for Wolves. So now they brought in Mateus Cunha from Atletico Madrid. Maybe that's the missing piece, but I just don't see it. And Aston Villa, they're really strong. They can grab any opponent by the throat, especially at home. However, I do see this as a draw in the first half. Aston Villa in first halves, regardless of venue, they have 4 wins, 7 draws, which are the third most in the league, and 6 losses. The Wolves in first halves, regardless of venue, they have 3 wins, 10 draws, which are by far the most in the league, and 4 losses. And when you look at Aston Villa's stats at home, they have 4 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses. They're doing a really good job. But in this occasion, I think that Wolves will try to play massive defense. They try to avoid getting behind in the score sheet in that first half, because Aston Villa, again, they're very deadly up front, and the way that they've been playing lately, I think that Wolves will surely want to cut every possible cutting lane, especially in that first half. And Wolves, I should say that in first halves on the road, they have 1 win, 5 draws, which are, again, the most in the league, and 2 losses. So each of the last 3 matches between the two sides at the Villa Park, were draws at halftime. So I'm willing to risk the first half draw at plus 120. I think that's a very possible outcome, again, because Wolves, they can't really do anything through their offense, but it's through their defense where they try to get most of their points.
All right, Pavlos. And Pavlos, I'm going to throw this one right back at you. Just a yes or no, because we've got a couple more games to cover. I always throw out some pizza bets on exact scores, but this is being played obviously in the UK, so this is a cranberry scone kind of play. 1-1 draw plus 600, 2-1 Wolverhampton plus 1400. You like either one of those?
2-1 Wolverhampton. I like the 1-1 draw, of course. Of course, I do like the 1-1 draw. I don't see a lot of goals in this match, but the 2-1 for Aston Villa just sounds better to me than the 2-1 for Wolves.
Okay. Well, I've got Wolves, so I've got to go for the 2-1 Wolves. All right, guys, let's go to the third game on the card. This one is Crystal Palace and the aforementioned Tottenham Hotspurs. The line on this one, Crystal Palace 228 at home. The draw is plus 249. Tottenham's plus 120. Before I go to Nick, and I know we're going to go mano on this one, but listen, I talked about in the Villa-Hampton game about letdown spots, but here I feel we have a great bounce back spot. You know, this Spurs team, they were listless against Villa, but this is a team that has been like this throughout most of this season, and yet find themselves in a spot where they're still 5th in the standings, 2 points out of 4th. And I just have to feel, even though people don't like Antonio Conte ball, that they are going to bounce back from this one. You know, I look at Palace and they got the win at Bournemouth, winning 2-0, but that's a Bournemouth team that has lost 6 of their last 7 games. They started off the World Cup postseason break with 2 red cards at home, losing to Fulham 3-0 in a game. You just don't know what you're going to get with this Crystal Palace team. If you're looking at it quality-wise, the better players are on this Spurs team coming off a bad loss. You have to figure they're going to bounce back, and you're getting plus money on them. So plus 120 on the Spurs for me. And now I'll go over to Nick, who is going to tell you what is wrong with my play.
Honestly, I don't think there's much at all wrong with your play. You're probably going to be right in the fact that it is a good bounce back spot for Spurs. And my opinion may be 100% jaded on this play because I had a 5% on Spurs against Villa over the weekend, and that was obviously a terrible decision. I feel like Bart Simpson, at the beginning of every episode of The Simpsons where he's writing on the chalkboard, and I'm just writing, don't bet Spurs, don't bet Spurs, don't bet Spurs. But I continue to do it, and every time I do, it usually doesn't work out for me. You mentioned how lethargic, I guess is a great word to use. They looked against Aston Villa just uninterested in that game. And that's on the heels of a 2-2 draw against Brentford on their way back. So, I'm going to try to make a case for Palace here, but, take my words with a grain of salt again that I may be jaded a little bit. And I do agree with Carmine. It could be a good bounce back spot for Spurs, but hear me out on Crystal Palace. So here's some trends for the Spurs that I think are alarming and going in the wrong direction. First 10 matches of the year, 7 wins, 2 draws, just that 1 loss, 1.73 expected goals for, 1.12 expected goals against. Pretty solid numbers. Last 7 games, 1.32 goals for, so that's a drop over 0.4 expected goals per game, and 1.47 expected goals allowed. So now they're in the negative differential, and they've gone plus or minus 0.4 to 0.3 either way. So clearly a team trending in the wrong direction. It's short term, sure, but there are some alarming results there. Palace, to me, they're kind of the same team each and every year. They're just the ho-hum, I guess you could say, of the league. They're slightly below the middle of the table. They tend to play to their competition. They'll pull out, decent, surprising results against good teams. They have a couple of draws this year against Newcastle, Liverpool. Look back at some City results. They tend to always give City trouble over the years. But then, against the worst teams in the league, they can throw just terrible performances out there. They lost to Fulham. They lost to Nottingham. They lost to Everton. So they're a hard team to trust in the favorite position, but they tend to perform better when they are the underdogs. They're 4-2-1 against the spread this year in the underdog role. However, it is worth noting that they're 0-2 at home and 4-0 on the road in that role. So take that for what it's worth. But Palace have also played Spurs tough. They've drawn or won each of the last 4 matches at home. So I'm going to lean to them getting a head start here. You can play this simple, just take plus a quarter of a goal at home. I'm going to pair it with a both teams to score prop and try to get a bigger number. So you can parlay Crystal Palace double chance, which is either win or draw, plus both teams to score for a nice plus 165 return. So any sort of a 1-1 draw, 2-2 draw, or any sort of a Palace win, as long as Tottenham is on the board, is going to cash that ticket. And I think I just don't see Spurs running away. They may end up figuring out a way to win the game, but I think it's going to be closer more often than not throughout this game. So I'll take the head start with Crystal Palace and hope it pulls through for me.
All right, Nick Borman of WagerTalk. And Nick, before we go to that final game, one of the things I pride myself in, and I'm not sure if this is a good thing or a bad thing, is, while I forget what my wife tells me about 20 seconds later, EPL results over the years, some of them just stick with me. And when you have a game, like you said, with the Spurs, like a 5% play, and when you saw something in them, and I feel you should always play them the next time out. I remember a game with, and this goes a while back, and you guys are gonna have to think about this one. Everton. I had Everton in a game against Newcastle at home. They're up 2-0 in the 90th minute and allow a 92nd minute goal and 94th minute goal. It finishes in a 2-2 draw. And it was absolutely sickening. And I thought Everton had turned the corner. And then the next week, they go out and they thrash whoever their opponents were 5-0. I saw something in them that was there. It was just unfortunate that I did not win the 5% play, but the following week I played them and they win 5-0. So maybe the Spurs do that for you. A Spurs 2-1 victory for the Cranberry Scone is plus 900 on a Spurs 2-1 victory at Palace. So I'm going to throw a few bucks on that one. All right, Chelsea, Man City, the final game, and maybe not the feature game of the week like I called it before, because Kevin corrected me, and I'm starting to like that Arsenal-Newcastle one that much more. But Chelsea plus 424 at home. We almost never see this number on this team at Stamford Bridge. Plus 301 on the draw, and City minus 155 coming off a disappointing game yet again, and now 7 points back in the title race. Pavlos, I'll go to you first on this one. Give me your thoughts on this game.
I feel there's going to be very, very few goals in the first half, and let me make my case. Chelsea so far in the EPL in first halves, regardless of venue, they have 6 wins, 7 draws, which are the third most in the league, and 3 losses. City in first halves, regardless of venue, they have 9 wins, 5 draws, and 2 losses. However, they're very, very good at home. On the road, City in first halves on the road, they have 3 wins, 3 draws, and 1 loss. They've scored 5 goals and conceded just 2. So that's just 7 goals from either side in 7 matches. That's an exact average of 1 goal per first half. Chelsea in first halves at home, they have 3 wins, 4 draws, and no losses. Those 4 draws are the second most in the EPL. Chelsea in those 7 matches at home in first half, they scored 4 goals and conceded none so far. So we see a Chelsea side who's playing really mad defense in those first halves at home. They don't really go for the kill. They scored just 4 goals in 7 first halves at home. Now, in the last 6 matches between the 2 sides, 4 of them had 0 goals in the first half, and 2 of them had exactly 1 goal in the first half. Again, Chelsea have yet to concede at home, in the first half. And City have scored just 5 goals and conceded 2 on the road in first half. So, judging by what I've seen, I'm just following the trend here, and I like the first half under 1 goal at plus 100. I think that's essentially what we call a free hit, in the sense that if there's 0 goals in the first half, this bet is a winner. If there's exactly 1 goal in the first half, this bet is a push. So that's what I mean by saying that it's a free hit, as I don't see a couple of goals or more in the first half. So I expect a very careful first half. Draw at first half is also quite possible, but I like the safety of the first half under 1 goal at plus 100.
All right, Pavlos, good luck with that play. Pavlos, I had to look it up while you were talking. And I was hoping that you would continue to talk so I could get this done. But I had to find that game I was talking about. And the Everton game that I was speaking of with Newcastle to Nick about happened on January 21st of 2020. That's how far this memory goes back. And it was a 94th and 95th minute goal by Florian Lejeune that literally killed my play. And when you lose big play that late in the game, in the 94th and 95th minutes, it always hurts. But let's 3 years later, I got to forget about that. Kev, give me your thoughts on Man City and Chelsea in this one. I'm interested to hear what your angle is on this game. Kevin?
Between Arsenal, this is like I said, this is kind of tied in with the game that we talked about at the start between Arsenal and Newcastle. For me, is I don't think they're necessarily separate entities. I think what happens in one will affect what happens in the other, and I believe a lot of how Manchester City will approach this game, kind of will be down to how Arsenal perform later tonight against Newcastle. Obviously City need to go out and win this game regardless, but I think a lot of the air will kind of get sucked out of the room should Pep's apprentice, register yet another victory at home later today, make that gap even bigger at the top of the table. And, that's not the kind of scenario I want to be laying a full goal with on a team, 3/4 of a goal head start, whatever the line should close at here. But, should Arsenal slip up later today, should Newcastle get a result in that game, suddenly you'd imagine there's blood in the water. The Sharks are out. Maybe the Arsenal Jenga is still in play. And you would imagine Pep will have, the players fired up to take full advantage of that fact should it happen. Look to potentially increase that goal difference on them as well. So, I might take a serious look at adding City on the handicap later in the week should Arsenal slip up against Newcastle later today. Potter's still making deals in the transfer window. He wants to get his team on this Chelsea team sheet. So Chelsea, they're still not a completely settled unit under him right now. And I think they're, vulnerable as a result. But, I agree with Pavlos in this one. I think no matter what ends up happening in the Arsenal game later tonight, the one thing I don't see happening in this one between Chelsea and City is a flood of goals. It's something we see quite a lot in, quote unquote, these kind of top six clashes anywhere where, despite all the amount of attack and talent on display, games usually go under the total, and no more so than this series as well, where we've only seen 4+ goals in just one of the last 10 meetings between the pair. And I really don't see that changing in this one either, given how good City's defensive record has been this year, plus the fact Chelsea ranked top 5 in defensive XGA over the last 2 months as well. So under 3 goals, that's the alternative line, is going off of -170 right now. It is a high price, but I really don't see 4+ goals in this game, given how good these teams are defensively. And obviously, like I said, I would take a strong look towards Manchester City on the handicap should Arsenal trip up later today against Newcastle as well.
All right, Kevin Dolan with his thing. I'm looking at, listen, I've lost faith in this Chelsea team. I just can't lose any more money on them, Kev. I'm looking for a big City win, but we'll see what happens. This season, if nothing else, as we enter 2023 is going to be an interesting one. There's a lot of jockeying for positions, not only for top spot, but for those Champions League spots. Just when you think Liverpool is back in it, they throw in one of those games like they did yesterday. So anyways, guys, listen, before we do a quick capper recap and we find out what they have up at Sports Memo and at WagerTalk, I'm going to throw out a deal for you guys. You don't need a coupon code for this, so don't worry about it. Go to your favorite cappers page that are on this show, and in the soccer drop-down menu, there is a 90-day soccer package, which is has been reduced to $4.99. If you pick up that 90 days, we're going to add the rest of the season on there. That's the rest of the season that goes to the end of May. So that'll cover all the European leagues, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, League One, and of course the EPL. There'll be some MLS in there, of course, Champions League, Europa League, you'll get all of that. So you're going to get 5 months for the price of 3, or essentially $99 a month. That's a great deal. No coupon needed. Our customer service department will automatically extend that 90-day package into 150 days. So don't worry about that. All right, let's get into our recap. Nick, we are going to go to you. Tell us what you have up on the site at WagerTalk as far as plays for this week.
Well, I have a 4% best bet going today in the EPL. And that I mentioned earlier, I have golf back. So I have a 5% golf play actually going this week in the first tournament back, and a promo going on for the rest of the season to get for just $199. No promo code needed to get it, but you'll get that through the Tour Championship in August. So EPL best bet going for Tuesday, 5% golf play this week, and a promo to get the rest of the golf year, all for $199.
All right, there you have it from Nick, and we'll have a quick look at his leans on the 2 games that he covered. If we can toss those up, I'm not sure if they were on the screen previously. And there's Nick's plays: Arsenal, Newcastle, both teams to score yes, and Crystal Palace double chance and both teams to score yes, plus 165. We'll go over to Pavlos next. Pavlos, we'll get your leans up on the screen and tell us what you have up at Sports Memo.
Okay, I have a 5% ultimate EPL play on the money line. It's one of my strongest plays of the week. I'm 11-2 in my last 13 money line plays, 5-star money line plays, I should say. 84.9% win rate with this one, so they've been really, really good. And I have a soccer 5-pack with several plays for tonight from the EPL and the Spanish Copa del Rey. I also have 3 free plays loaded at my page. You can find them. Just go at sm.buzz/PL and you'll find 3 plays. It's a play on the sides, a play on the totals, and a prop, all filled with betting reasonings and alternative lines and several ways to play this and betting explanations. So head over to my page and you'll find all about it.
All right, Pavlos Lagatos of Sports Memo, and you see his leans there. Kev, we're going to go to you before I finish off the show. Tell us what you have up at WagerTalk.
Well, I'll just say quickly too, Carmine, I have a 20 plus 2,500 ticket on Chelsea. You mentioned losing faith in them, so I checked the odds today. They're plus 1,400 to win the Champions League. So I should be happy. On one hand, I'm happy that I've got a 25-1 ticket, but then I'm like, Chelsea aren't winning the Champions League, so it's effectively dead in the water. But yeah, we got an EPL play of the day up for tonight. We got an EPL play up already loaded for tomorrow as well. NHL up for tonight as well, and you can get a 3-day all-access pass for only $23 using code NEWYEAR23 at checkout for me. So, yeah, that's what we got going on this week.
All right, best of luck with yours. And I'm going to close off the show by saying a huge NHL card coming up. Puck Time is coming up at the top of the hour, so tune in for myself, Andrew McInnes, and returns, and Don Buster as well too. A couple of EPL plays. Those will be available after the show is over. Grab those. Grab a 3-day all access as well too. We got some great deals, and you can see them on my page as well, as I've got a 5% midweek play coming out. My leans are up on the board as well, as you saw. Wolverhampton and Tottenham, I'm getting plus money on both, and I'm pretty happy about it. Guys, tune in on Thursday, 10 a.m. Brian Power is going to join us. He's been on a couple of previous shows when Nick was gallivanting throughout Ireland. Brian will join us on Thursday's show. We're going to cover some weekend games in some other leagues. We're going to go Serie A and La Liga as the EPL pauses for some FA Cup action, and we might actually cover 1 or 2 of those games as well too. Again, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and as always, guys, good luck with your wagers.
Tuesdays is known as $2 Tuesdays at WagerTalk.com and SportsMemo.com, where you can get the hottest handicappers' best bet or daily package for only $2.